Hyper escalation on every front. That's what we're facing. The Biden administration has just announced 2,000 American troops are being prepared to deploy in support of Israel. This is, of course, in addition to the 2 aircraft carriers that the United States has sent to that region. It was one of the largest, I think it's the largest aircraft carrier uh, in history. It's huge. And he sent that earlier, right when it happened, probably on Thursday or Friday. And ooh, we're sending yet another 2,000 American troops there. We had 10,000 American souls on the aircraft carriers. 10,000 souls on those carriers, and then another 2,000 on the ground, another couple hundred more from the carrier battle group. So let's put that all together. We've got about 12,500 troops headed to the region. And guess what, folks? We don't know who's going to fire the shot. We don't know where it's going to come from. But here's how it's going to go down. Breaking: American serviceman shot and killed. Joe Biden demands a response. Do you understand why last week there was a full force assault on your amygdala, that little part in your brain, the gray matter in your brain? There was an assault on your amygdala, saying we must get involved. We must get involved. We must get involved. We must get involved. Hamas must pay. Hamas must pay. Hamas must pay. Of course, Hamas must pay. But understand what this is building towards. If one American gets killed, then suddenly we're gonna call for mass US involvement in the war. And believe me, that's exactly what they want. You see the warmongers and Yellen up there, Janet Yellen. She says that we can afford another war. She says the economy's great. She's sitting up there saying everything that Mearsheimer, look up Mearsheimer's warning, has warned us about. She's saying it. This is Mearsheimer's warning on steroids, because we're not even talking about Taiwan yet. Yeah, don't forget Taiwan. Yet she came out and she said it. A two-front world conflict. That's what they want. Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Iran, because that's really what this is all about. It's Iran and Israel. Iran is fueling Hamas with the $6 billion we gave them. Isn't that kind of funny? The United States, we're giving money to the bad guys and to the good guys. These warmongers, they just want war. Two-front world conflict. What have I been warning you about for the past 18 months under this administration? And Yellen just admits it. She admits it right in front of the entire world. That's exactly what they want. They want the chaos. Don't believe me? Let's just take a listen to Janet Yellen here on the Morning Buzz. I'm Kat Peterson. Here we go.
What this all means. Paul Tudor-Jones, the famed investor, was on CNBC this week, and he said, "This is the most threatening and challenging geopolitical environment that I've ever seen. At the same time, the US is in its weakest fiscal position since World War II, with debt to GDP at 122%. Can America, can the West afford another war at this time?"
I think the answer is absolutely. America can certainly afford to stand with Israel and to support Israel's military needs. And we also can and must support Ukraine in its struggle against Russia. And look, the American economy is doing extremely well.
There she is. She just admits it. Janet Yellen up there in front of the whole world. She admits it. They want a two-front world conflict. Meanwhile, a foreign-born judge has just gagged President Donald Trump. Foreign-born. The president of the United States has been gagged by a foreign-born judge. If you want to understand the circumstances in which we find ourselves presently, this is reality. We're in reality. And if you're not waking up to the dire situation we're in, just go somewhere else. Just go somewhere else. It's fine. I'm not going to be upset. You can change the channel, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's all gumdrops, roses, and butterflies. Okay? This is going to get worse. That's as simple as that. We do have so much to get to, though, today on the show. Part of it is this two-front, a hyper-escalation going to get worse. Hyper-escalation is upon us. I'm sorry. We didn't have this when Joe Biden wasn't president. We didn't have Russia invading Ukraine. We didn't have Hamas continuing to invade. I mean, they've always been after Israel, but they did this surprise slaughter attack. It's because they know President Joe Biden is weak. We are going to be talking about New York City. This public school teacher, he actually praises Hamas. And if you don't think that your kid, if you're sending them off to public school, I wouldn't doubt that there's public school teachers who celebrate the slaughter of women and children as a successful military campaign. We're seeing it in New York City. This just in, a teacher praising Hamas and says that, the whole slaughter of those people at that music festival where the paragliders came in and just cut people down, that was what he called a successful military campaign. Also, this is kind of funny story. Teacher bragging on TikTok about farting on students. Yes. And he doesn't understand why the school fired him for it. And to be honest with you, I don't either. I mean, there's a lot of things teachers get away with, and this guy was kind of making a joke on TikTok. So I'm going to get to that here in just a little bit. But also, Joe Biden, he goes on 60 Minutes. I don't know who let Joe Biden go on 60 Minutes. And you guessed it, it was a train wreck. Of course, it was a train wreck. Anywhere Joe Biden goes, it's a train wreck. If he doesn't fall over first. All right, so let's get into it. Somewhere in America, a teacher had to be asked by a school administrator how often he really passes gas near students. Yes, just if you take nothing else from this story, you have got to take this little bit. A teacher somewhere in America had to be asked by a school administrator, hey, how often do you fart near students? So Stephen Taylor is his name, and I think he's a stand-up comedian. Until recently, he became a teacher. So he was always a stand-up comedian. He had a big presence on TikTok. He's a comedian, but then he also he later became a teacher. So he got in trouble over a TikTok video. This teacher did. Not now, unlike most educators in America who brag about, you know, the subversive things they do to students because they don't understand how the internet works. Taylor sounded like he was doing a bit. Okay, so I don't think that he actually was farting on students. I think that he was actually doing a comedic bit. There are educators, most educators in America will brag about how they do terrible things to students or teach them terrible things. The queer, the LGBTQI, ABCDEFGs, right? They'll get up there and they'll brag about how they take your kid into a closet and then they change their clothes so that way their clothing aligns with the gender they want to be. And they'll brag about how, oh yeah, we're not obligated to tell parents if they are identifying a certain way. If little Timmy wants to be Tammy, we don't have to tell his mom that. We can just change his clothes in this little, affirmation or whatever closet. And this is an actual thing. School teachers change your kid in the middle of the day, and they change them to fit their cooked up idea of who they are in their head. Okay, it's awful. What a lot of public school teachers do. Not all, just a lot of them. And if you don't believe me, look no further than the BEA. They actually sent out emails to District 87 educators of all grade levels. I mean, K through 12. They sent out an email saying, hey, if little Timmy wants to be Tammy, you can't out that student to their parent. Okay, you can't tell the parent without written consent from Timmy. You have to get written consent from Timmy that it's okay to disclose his gender identity to his parents, the people who gave birth to him and created his life. Yeah, It's real backwards. Anyway, let's get back to the story. Stephen Taylor. Um, he got in trouble for this TikTok video. He joked about how dumb kids are. Oh, okay, so maybe there's a little bit of truth to the comedy, okay? He says that, sometimes he'll tell him, like, Jake Paul and Logan Paul had a great-great-grandfather named Paul Revere, and he just tells them all kinds of backwards, history. I don't think he actually does this. I think that he was doing a bit on TikTok. I really do. I actually found it funny. He then also bragged in this TikTok about how he them and he farts on them. So, you know, at the end of the day, the reason why I brought this up, this guy is clearly doing a comedic bit, and there's so much worse that teachers do to children, and for some odd reason, they got real upset that this guy said this kind of stuff on TikTok. I get it. You can't get on TikTok as a teacher or do social media in this way, but I still think it's kind of unfair. He was just doing a comedic bit. But let's take a listen. Here we go. I think it's funny.
Teachers, if a student is annoying you, just remember you can lie. There's nothing that says you have to tell the truth all the time. I teach history. I tell my students the wrong stuff all the time when they annoy me. I tell them that Abraham Lincoln invented the car. That's why it's named after him. I tell them Logan Paul and Jake Paul had a great grandfather named Paul Revere because they don't even know how names work anymore. And I crop dust them all the time. I save up big, milky, lactose intolerant farts, and I drop bombs silently because I'm an adult and I know my body. And then I just let it stew. And then I walk away and I go, oh my God, it stinks over there. And then they have to sit with it. And you know what? They can't fire me because they need me too badly.
I just thought that was so funny. You had the guy and he was there and he was talking about crop dusting kids and lying to kids. And I think that's just so funny. I found it funny because I'm a child. And unlike Representative AOC, who lets them rip in congressional videos, yes, that's actually what happened. I think she actually farted on video. I played that clip yesterday, and I let you guys be the judge of that. But she hasn't come out and said, yes, I did indeed fart in that congressional video. But I don't think this teacher actually did that. I just think that he was making a joke on TikTok. Clearly, this didn't happen. Clearly, he doesn't lie to students. I'm sure he takes his job very seriously. But the school district, on the other hand, did not find it funny at all. The district wouldn't comment on the matter, actually. And they provided a copy of their social media policy that teachers should maintain, quote, the same level of personal responsibility, discretion, and professionalism expected in any other form of communication. I agree. I really do think that teachers should have a level of professionalism. I'm very much against teachers giving out their phone numbers to students, letting students. I had a couple of teachers when I was growing up let us call them by their first names. Actually, I preferred it that we call them by their first names. And I was like, that's odd. And that's not professional, right? So you have to maintain a level of professionalism. Um, but Stephen Taylor, he says, that's all outdated. Social media policies were designed for MySpace, and everybody's using TikTok. TikTok is alive and well, and everybody's on it. So we need to kind of change up the social media policies to reflect the times that we're in. Taylor says that the students were in on the joke, and he comes across in the video, to me anyway, that he's the type of teacher who would you know, let the kids be in on the joke. And yeah, I don't know. I'm stuck on this one. I don't think he should have been terminated. I don't think joking about farts was worth termination. But also, there's so many other things that the district puts up with when it comes to teachers. Like, oh, I don't know, teachers straight up lying to parents. And unlike Governor J.B. Pritzker said in that clip on the newscast that you're going to probably hear coming up in just a couple of minutes. Tom, he did the news, and JB, you can hear him in the news. He says, "Yeah, well, they're the ones who Republicans are the ones against parents," and he says that they're radical. I don't even recognize them. I think the Democrats are the ones who are radical because they are trying to. The teachers union, BEA. I have the email. It says, "Do not tell parents that their students, that their children." Identify a certain way. You can't risk outing those students to those parents. You have to obtain written consent from the student to disclose the truth to their parents. So you have to lie to the parents, and the kid has to lie to the parents. Yeah. So there's so much worse than I think this guy did out there, but still, I get it. 309-451-9299. I'm going to take a quick break, but when we come back, I've got so much to get to today. New York public school teacher, lots of school teacher things today, but I promise I've got more. There was actually a fight that I want to talk about because it was at a Bears game. uh, I interrupt the chaos of the world for a skirmish that does not have global ramifications. It's the Chicago Bears fans. They were fighting each other. And I guess that, I mean, this guy gets knocked out. And I guess it was all over a bathroom dispute. I'm going to tell you about it here coming up on the other side. This is the Morning Buzz. Hey, folks, if you're watching, go ahead and smash that like button. Yes, we talked about the TikTok video. The guy, I think he was just straight up making a joke, and I totally get it. I'm not for teachers having social media. I'm actually very much against teachers handing out their phone number. I even had a teacher, several teachers who preferred I called them by their first name, which is totally inappropriate and something that should not be going on. And I realize that now as an adult. As a kid, I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I was like, oh, I'm on a first name basis with my teacher. No, there has to be a level of professionalism. And I get why this guy was fired, but also at the same time, there's so much worse. Olympia has a freshman health teacher. Oh, discussing multiple genders as fact. Yeah. A student just yesterday spoke up in the class against that claim and was, of course, chastised. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Jacqueline, tell the kid or the parents. I would love to do that story if that's a factual story. A freshman health teacher. You will never believe. So I'm actually going to try to find that video here. The CBC, which is the Canadian Broadcasting Network or whatever, they have this media. It's like a video. It's like a 2-minute video, and it talks about how gender is the way you feel inside, and it might not necessarily reflect the biology that you have. And it was like a 2-minute video that was shown to fourth graders in a classroom. So in Wisconsin, like, so I don't even understand the craziness of allowing Canada propaganda into our fourth grade classrooms. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me why that exists. But it exists, and they're showing it to children. If you're watching right now, go ahead, smash the like button. We're going to be back in just a couple of minutes with the rest of the show. I do have Darren Bailey coming on at 7 o'clock. I'm very excited about that. I'm going to check our very busy text line. Okay. We're going to be back, and we're going to be chatting with, hopefully, I've got William J. Kelly coming. He's from Chicago, a Chicago reporter. He said that he had a couple of stories to share with me today. And then we're also going to be talking with Darren Bailey in the 7 o'clock hour. But first, I will talk about that old, these poor Chicago Bear fans. This one Bear fan, he just completely gets knocked out with one brutal sucker punch, and I guess it was over the bathroom, like a bathroom dispute. So this is just kind of an odd thing, an odd story, and I found it funny because they were Chicago Bears fans, but we're gonna be getting to that here in just a second. All right, we're back, and we are going to be chatting about the Chicago Bears fans that got into a fight. They're both Bears fans, and one is wearing a Walter Payton jersey, the other one is wearing a Justin Fields jersey, and then they start beating up on each other. And I was just so shocked um, that that they were fighting over the bathroom. I was like, "What? Over the bathroom, out of all things?" We are going to be getting into the hyper escalation of this war on every front. This is just hyper escalation. There's a uh, front conflict right now, two front conflict, and Americans, they're being sent over there right now. 2,000 American troops are being prepared to deploy in support of Israel. Now, what people forget is that we already sent two aircraft carriers. These are one of them was one of the largest ones in history, in U.S. history. This is a huge aircraft carrier, and it was carrying like 10,000 Americans. So we're looking at about 12,500 troops total headed to that region. And guess what, folks? No one knows who that first fire or that first shot is going to come from. Um, and it's going to go down like this: breaking American servicemen killed. Joe Biden has to respond. He demands a response. And then there's a mass issue. Yes, hyper escalation on every front. Good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. You can see me live in studio. That's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Hyper escalation. That's what I'm calling it. Hyper escalation on every single front. That's what we're facing. The Biden administration has just announced 2,000 American troops are being prepared to deploy in support of Israel. And look, folks, I want Hamas to pay. I really do. But understand what point of the movie we are in. This is a two front world conflict. And we've got Janet Yellen up there saying, "Oh, we can afford this. The American economy is great. We can afford two wars at the same time." She's sitting up there and she's saying the quiet part out loud. They want this, they want chaos. Meanwhile, we've got this foreign born judge who's gagged President Donald Trump. The president of the United States has been gagged by a foreign born judge. You've got to wake up to this dire situation that we are in. You got to. And I know you're like, Kat, I just want gumdrops and roses. I know, but it's going to get worse. I can see how it's going to play out. Breaking American servicemen killed. And we won't know who fires the shot. We won't know. We don't know where that shot is going to have come from. But we do know that Joe Biden's going to demand a response. And you guys remember last week, it was a full assault on your amygdala, on your brain. They said, we must get involved. We must get involved. We must get involved. We must get involved. Hamas must pay. Hamas must pay. Yes, I want Hamas to pay too, because I'm a Christian and I believe that we need to defend Israel. But I don't believe in hyper escalation and I don't believe in war. And these people, these warmongers, and Janet Yellen up there saying that we should do this. In fact, she almost looks giddy when she's sitting there in that chair talking about this uh, two front world conflict. She looks giddy. She looks excited. All right, I do have to tell you a little bit about a New York public school teacher praising Hamas, uh, and he's celebrating the slaughter of women and children as a successful military campaign. That's what he said that the paragliders were. So we knew that BLM Chicago, Regan Deering, she's running in the 88th. She's actually calling for a full out investigation of BLM Chicago and of our state monies going to BLM, Black Lives Matter. We do know that $300,000 of that money went to a BLM leader who was a convicted felon. And that's JB's fault. That's Governor JB Pritzker's fault. $300,000 just went to this guy who's a convicted felon. And this is the same group that posted this paraglider image, and they deleted it. because they were like, oh, maybe even that's too far. But no, the reason why they actually deleted it was because they knew that it was going to give them all kinds of backlash, and they were getting backlash because of it. So that's why they took it down. They believe in it, though. They believe in the paragliders. They think it was a successful military campaign. They want to see the eradication of Jewish people. So this New York public school teacher praised Hamas and celebrated the slaughter of those women and children. And look, I am calling for it too. Yes, Reagan, we need a full investigation into what kind of money we're giving BLM as a state, our state taxpayer money. Would you donate your money to BLM? Would you do that? No, you wouldn't. But guess what they're doing? They're robbing you. They're taking it out of your taxes, and then they're giving it to a convicted felon who operates, and I'm just going to say it, a domestic terror organization. That's what BLM is. Antifa is a domestic terror organization. We're going to get to that here in just a little bit. But first, I did want to tell you about this funny story. I came across it and I was like, okay, I got to share this with, especially if you're a Bears fan. I think you're going to like this. I interrupt the chaos of the world for a skirmish that does not have global ramifications, unlike Hamas, Israel, Ukraine, Russia, which I will get to those numbers, by the way. What's going on in Hamas and Israel, that is far surpassing the numbers that we're seeing in Ukraine and Russia. Like, we're already on pace for casualties, and this is just sad to say, but we're already on pace for those casualties to exceed what has been going on in Russia, Ukraine. Uh, so there's been way more casualties in Israel and Hamas just in the past couple of weeks here, or week or so, than the entire war of Russia and Ukraine. So, which has been going on for 3 almost, or 2 years, maybe a year, 2 almost 2 years. Anyway, so Chicago Bears fans, they suffer enough indignities, I'll say that, by being Bears fans. Okay, if you're a Bears fan, you suffer enough without having the snot completely knocked out of you over the bathroom. So this is what happened. It was a bathroom dispute. For one poor sap, seeing his team lose again just wasn't that was the least of his problems. Okay, so there were these two Bears fans. They were getting into a fight, and what's really the worst thing about this is that a Walter Payton fan. So there was a guy in a Walter Payton jersey. He's a fan. He was getting manhandled by a Justin Fields fan. If you're wearing a Peyton jersey, you're legit. And if you're wearing the jersey of a quarterback who has you going 4-19 over the last 2 seasons, you look like you jumped the bandwagon, jumped on the bandwagon too soon. Okay, so this guy in the Justin Field jersey, I'm like, a Justin Fields fan, really? How? Why? We've got 2 seasons here, and we're 14-19 over the last 2 seasons. You jumped on the bandwagon way too soon. Why'd you buy one? Why'd you buy a Justin Fields jersey? I'm just kind of be confused about that. No, I don't know football all that much. I just know that Justin Fields not doing so hot. But Walter Payton jersey, this guy in the Walter Payton jersey gets the snot knocked out of him. It's bad. My quarterback is always Tom Brady. I do the winners. I only do winners. I don't do losers. Right? So Tom Brady's my quarterback. So it doesn't matter at the end of the day what I really think about these guys. But our video starts with a skirmish already in progress, allegedly over the bathroom at the Bears game. So it's Bears on Bears violence. Chicago, not San Francisco. Okay, Chicago, 2 Bears fans. So Fields, the guy in the Fields jersey, being the fat punk that he is, saw the Peyton fan, Walter Payton fan, slowly getting up from the ground. That's where he hit him from behind and dropped him. That was a sucker punch. It was bad. I'm not going to play the video because it's just riddled with all kinds of profanities. But it looked like one of those UFC knockouts where the fighter just gets slept, comes through right away, and then starts arguing with the referee. that he wasn't knocked out. No, I wasn't knocked out. I wasn't knocked out. No. To give the Walter Payton fan credit though, after getting up, he went right after Justin Fields again, the Justin Fields fan, and he wound up on his arse yet again. Yeah, so he was really getting his butt handed to him by this Justin Fields fan. So it all happened so quickly. It's unclear at what point in the Bears game their 19-13 loss to the Minnesota Vikings. I have no idea at what point in the game this fight was going on. I would guess, if I had to guess, it would have happened in the third quarter because, a whole half of the game's worth of beer and Polish sausage, right? You can understand those bathrooms being a war zone. That's exactly what this looked like. It was a war zone between Justin Fields and Walter Payton, these two fans, these Bears fans. I thought that was funny. I don't know. I've never been to a Bears game before. I just haven't. I've just never been to one. And after seeing this video, I don't think I'm missing too much. If I go to the bathroom and be and risk being sucker punched, yeah, I don't think I'd go to a Bears game after seeing that video. Not for a while anyway. All right, I'm going to be back on the other side. This is the Morning Buzz. William J. Kelly joining me. I'm so excited to talk all things Chicago. He's an Emmy Award-winning Chicago reporter. We're going to catch up all things Chicago next. Good morning, friends. If you're tuned in to the stream, go ahead and share this out with your friends. We are going to be visiting with William J. Kelly. He's a veteran Chicago reporter, feared and despised by not only Mayor Lori Lightfoot, but Brandon Johnson as well. Speaking of, where is Brandon? Where is Brandon Johnson? Turns out he didn't go on his little trip. It was a taxpayer trip, a taxpayer paid for trip to the border. He and a couple of other Democrat mayors, I think it was Eric Adams, they were planning on going down to the southern border, but all of a sudden, Brandon says, nah, I'm not going. Wonder why that is. Well, reporter William J. Kelly is going to tell us a little bit more about the immigration situation and Brandon Johnson. Where are you, Brandon? I'm looking for you. The Chicago mayor, Brandon Johnson. He's not going. Is he going? Is he gonna go on his trip to the Texas-Mexico border? This was supposed to be a taxpayer-funded trip. I don't know if he's going anymore, but veteran Chicago reporter William J. Kelly joins me now. He's feared and despised by not only Mayor Lori Lightfoot, but also Brandon Johnson. Great to see you this morning, William. And folks, we are on Rumble, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook to live streaming. If you guys want to head there, you can see William also in his studio, and you can see me in my studio. And we've got to talk all things Chicago. So first, let's answer the question: where is he? Where's Brandon?
God bless you, Kat. I am happy to see you. I don't really know where Brandon Johnson is. I don't think he knows where he is, to be honest with you. That's what I'm starting to hear from a lot of people who work at City Hall, who have, obviously who have to be there. They're police officers, they work security, and then just average citizens, including people who voted for him, supported him, were very enthusiastic. They thought that he would be great. They are starting to get the feeling that he really is not up to the job. Prior to becoming mayor of the city of Chicago, which, as an Irish Catholic growing up on the south side of Chicago, I believe that being mayor of Chicago was the most important job in the world. I believe that the mayor decided who would be president, who would decide that world leaders would come to Chicago just to get the support of the mayor of Chicago, right? But Mayor Johnson, sadly, does not seem to be up to the task. Prior to becoming mayor, his resume was essentially a lobbyist for the Chicago public school system, which is clearly a mess. And he was a part-time teacher. I mean, think about it, Kat. Do you remember any of your part-time teachers when you were in grammar school? Did any of them really strike you as potential future world leaders? I don't think so.
No. And so he doesn't know if he's going on this trip down to the Mexico border. And I know that this trip was going to be taxpayer funded, correct?
Well, like everything else, right?
Yeah. Him and all of his friends. They're going to go down to Mexico and drink margaritas. Woohoo!
And God only knows what else.
Yeah.
It's probably a good thing, to be perfectly honest with you, because we do know what, sadly, the history of some of our great leaders going down to kind of parts unknown, like their travel tour guides or something. We do know that I can't help but imagine what horribly embarrassing escapades may have been prevented as a result of Brandon Johnson waking up and just reversing course and deciding that he wasn't going to do what he said he was going to do, hours and days before. But, the real tragedy is for the people of Chicago, the people of Illinois, and the people of the Midwest. Chicago, if nothing else, was the economic engine of the state of Illinois and the Midwest. And sadly, it's grinding. I can hear the gears grinding literally as I speak, grinding to a halt. People are not returning to offices. Why would they? Office buildings that have been where businesses invest hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars are being turned into migrant shelters. And one of the, we have a catch and release policy, not only at the border, but we have a catch and release criminal policy here in the city of Chicago. We have armed robbers, we have carjackers that are arrested and then released. Judges release them. This is a problem on the border. It's a problem with violent crime in Chicago. I've been to the airport. I've been to report on the migrants sleeping on the floor. Every time I go there, the first time I went to do a story at O'Hare International Airport, as you probably know, it was to report on the resident homeless, the homeless people in Chicago that were sleeping in the airport, right? Mm-hmm. This was like the big crisis that we needed to fix. Now, the resident homeless, the American homeless, have been kicked out of the airport to make room for migrants. But the most recent time that I went to O'Hare International Airport, or as the migrants refer to it, Little Caracas. You can't make this stuff up, Kat. I mean, it's ridiculous. Wow. They've taken over both sides of the terminal. You can see that on my Twitter, on my Facebook. It really is, for any American, any right-thinking or red-blooded American, a real crisis and a tragedy.
Well, and, I love the numbers that you've got here. Under a state program approved by Governor J.B. Pritzker, Chicago is actually going to be providing $9,000 up to rental assistance for each migrant. So they're getting $9,000. And this includes, folks, a starter kit to furnish that apartment. So not only are we giving them money for rent. I mean, you would love money for rent. I'd love money for rent.
It's the Barbie dream house. Kat, it's the Barbie dream house. Why wouldn't entire villages in Central and South America just clear out and come straight to the state of Illinois? First of all, every single migrant that I've ever attempted to interview, obviously they all speak Spanish, so they don't speak a word of English. So I'm not 100% sure how they're, why J.B. Pritzker thinks they're going to be police officers or something like this. But at any rate, they all have cell phones, and so somehow they all have cell phones. I guarantee you, if they're sending even a single text back to Caracas or wherever or God only knows what other Middle Eastern country, whatever other location that they came from, if they're sending even a single text back that says, "Hey, I just got a check for $9,000, furniture, and they're going to help me move. They're going to pay my moving costs." I guarantee you, what is preventing entire city, towns, and villages from just clearing out and moving to Illinois?
Yeah. Well, and one thing that I was, wondering about was the parks here. So you've got a story about Glendale residents and Austin residents, and they are on fire. And so are we converting a field house that was originally made for those residents and football players? Are we converting that into a migrant shelter now in Chicago? I mean, this is Glenwood and Austin, so they're suburbs.
Well, no. This is city of Chicago, city proper. That is okay. A neighborhood in the city of Chicago. In fact, oddly, this is a neighborhood that went overwhelmingly for Brandon Johnson on his promise. Get this. This is why a lot of Chicagoans who supported Brandon Johnson are really turning against him vocally. Let's put it that way. I don't want to be confused. Very, very, very vocally, because he promised them that he would end the systematic racism and the decades of decline in violence, criminal violence, by investing in young people, by giving the young people in that community something to do in the community, like go to the park and play sports and engage in other hopefully character building activities. But what is he doing instead? He's turning the very park in that neighborhood into a migrant shelter. It's he basically, I would almost go so far as to say, if you want to know what Mayor Brandon Johnson is going to do tomorrow, it'll probably be the opposite of whatever he says today.
Mm, mm. Well, we've got to take a break, and William J. Kelly, I so do appreciate you coming on. Anything else you'd like to add?
We appreciate you, Kat. You're the one who's giving free speech a chance here. Reporter WilliamJKelly.com. If you want to read my lawsuit against Mayor Brandon Johnson, it started out under Lightfoot. She revoked my media credential, where we went to federal court. We're going to fight for freedom of speech. I'm telling you, Kat, this is, I believe, the seminal issue of the in America today. We need to defend free speech. I have a legal, who would have thought that in order to be a reporter in the city of Chicago, I would need a legal defense fund? Okay. Literally going to City Hall is putting my life and my liberty at risk. If somebody I'll be going there today, by the way. If anyone would like to contribute to my legal defense fund, go to reporterwilliamjkelly.com, read my lawsuit against Mayor Johnson, and then you can click on all the different options if you want to support.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much, William J. Kelly. You have a great rest of your day. And folks, Chicago, it's a hellhole. Yesterday, we talked a lot about BLM Chicago and how these terrorists put up a paraglider image. And that paraglider image was reminiscent of the terrorist attack where they went into a music festival and they slaughtered Jewish people. And we had BLM Chicago celebrating that with this image. And then on top of that, folks, we've been paying money to BLM. State taxpayer money, your money is going to those organizations that celebrate the slaughtering of Jews. And I'm sorry you live in the state of Illinois, but we're going to be back with more news next. This is Cities 92.9. Good morning, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. We are going to be back on talking with Darren Bailey in the 7 o'clock hour. Very excited about that. They let Joe Biden go out on 60 Minutes, and it was complete train wreck, as you could guess. Also, this New York public school teacher praising Hamas, celebrating the slaughter of women and children. He said that this paraglider shooting down into or these paragliders shooting down into this music festival and parachuting down into it and then cutting down women and children. He called that, quote, and I'm quoting him here, a successful military campaign. Yes, this is a public school teacher. It wouldn't shock me if there's more public school teachers like this guy. But I'm going to be telling you a little bit about him and Joe Biden. He made an appearance on, of course, 60 Minutes. And I mean, even in the friendliest of situations, Biden giving an interview is a risk. I don't know who said, oh, yeah, let's get him out there and let's do an interview on 60 Minutes. Who said that? Okay, they need to be blacklisted from political communications. But either way, he was out there, and I guess the interview was meant to project leadership while the wheels of the planet are coming off. They are coming off. The wheels are coming off of this planet. And I guess this interview was supposed to be this, oh, look at Joe Biden. He's such a leader. No, 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 no. This interview reeked of derpitude. That's what I like to call it. Um, it was just a derp performance. It was a derpy performance, and the show host, Scott Pelley, inadvertently actually threw Joe Biden under the bus and called him old, which was kind of funny. I'll talk about that here next. Good morning. I'm live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Rumble. You can see me there. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's Kat Peterson 929 in the 7 o'clock hour. Who are we going to be chatting with? Well, that's Darren Bailey. Mike Bost, I guess, got all flabbergasted, and he was like, Darren Bailey, why are you even running against me? King Bost, Congressman Bost, of course. He hates it when his subjects get a little rowdy. He hates it when, they want to run for his office. He's like, why would you even run against me? Because this is a constitutional republic, and this is the way it goes in America. You don't like, I don't like the way you're voting in office. I don't like that you've given billions of dollars to Ukraine, and I'm running against you. So Darren Bailey joining me next on the Buzz. Good morning, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. Yes, Darren Bailey. We gotta get into Mike Bost, because apparently Mike Bost went after Darren Bailey in a campaign appearance. I don't know if it was some sort of event or what, but one thing that you need to know, and I've looked at his voting record. I've also looked at Darren LaHood's voting record. These people, they tend to vote and overspend. Okay. The only congresswoman, and I recently saw her in Hayworth, Illinois. She came to McLean County for the Lincoln Series graduation. I was emceeing the event. And look, Mary Miller she's consistently voting against spending $3 billion there, $3 billion here for Ukraine. And, people like Mike Bost, they'll sit out or get out there and they'll say, oh, um, you know, uh, I voted against Ukraine, or I voted against this spending bill, and then you're like, oh, well, this guy's a good guy. He's definitely, for me. He's not, you know, um, spending all of this money and sending it over to Ukraine. But the last couple of votes, don't look at the last couple of votes. Look at the track record. Look at the time. We'll be right back. Oh boy, a two-front world conflict. I mean, that's exactly what they want. One American gets killed over there, and all of a sudden, we're going to call for mass U.S. involvement in the war. That's what they want. You see these warmongers and Janet Yellen up there. They're saying we can afford this. She actually said that. She says that the American economy is great. She's sitting up there and she's saying that. Yes, as by now you've heard, hyper escalation on every front. We're looking at 2,000 American troops. They're being prepared to be deployed to go support Israel, and this is in addition to the two aircraft carriers that the United States sent earlier to that region. So we're looking at about 12,500 American souls. And I can already see the headlines. Breaking: American servicemen shot and killed. And we won't know who shot them. We won't even know where it came from. But I'll tell you right now, Joe Biden is going to demand a response. And look, they were saying it all last week. This was a full force on your enigma, or on your on your brain. This was a full force on your brain, full force assault on your brain. Get involved, get involved, get involved, get involved. Hamas must pay, Hamas must pay. And yes, I believe Hamas must pay. As a Christian Zionist, I believe that Israel has the right, not even the right, but God wants Israel to exist. God wants Israel to defend itself. And, you're like, why does Hamas hate Israel so much? Why does Hamas hate America so much? After 9/11, you can see video footage of the Hamas terrorist organizations and the Palestinians chanting, "Death to America, death to America, we hate America." And it's like, why do they hate America? Why do they hate Israel? Well, I'll tell you why. It's real simple. Israel, God chose Israel, and America chose God. For those reasons and those reasons alone, that's why Judeo-Christian values, they hate them. They hate them. They hate life, and they celebrate death. Joining me here to talk about Mike Boss specifically, because this is wrong. And people have told me before, well, why can't you just forgive Darren LaHood, Mike Boss? Why can't you just forgive that they gave $3 billion here, $3 billion there to Ukraine? And I just said, look, I can forgive him, sure. That's not even really my sin to forgive. That's Jesus. Jesus is the forgiver of sin. Because I do believe giving money over to Ukraine is some sort of sin. But it's not my sins to forgive. I don't have to vote him back in. And just because if I say I forgave them for doing that and they changed everything about themselves and they said, you know what, we're going to start voting the right way. Too bad. I don't have to vote for you again because I don't trust you now. See, you've sent 3 billion here, 3 billion there. Darren Bailey, Mike Bost, did he like rip into you at like a campaign event or something?
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, we had the campaign trail is alive and well here in the 12th Congressional District. Sunday night in Washington County, we had the Republicans there had a Century Republican Club meeting, and I don't know, probably 40, 50 people there, and the venue was full with that, and it was just a quiet evening, and so the two. They let he and I speak. We were really the only ones. The other representatives, the home representative of the district spoke. But so anyway, I got up, gave my speech, and pretty well talked in generalities. Addressing the problems as to why I was running for Congress without really mentioning his name. And well, when he stood up after me, he got to speak after me because he's the elected the congressman and absolutely, the poor guy just admitted that he has no idea why I'm running. And Kat, what you're talking about here, you're dead on. And he and other establishment hacks, they're throwing Matt Gaetz and the 8 under the bus, saying, "How dare you? How dare you? You're destroying our nation because you at such a time as this to have this problem." With that, we don't have a speaker. How dare you? Is their message, and my message is, Oh my gosh, you had 9 months. You've had 9 months to get your act together. Mr. McCarthy, the Speaker of the House, broke every one of his promises. He failed to live up to absolutely anything. Instead, they spent lots of time, passing bills that they knew the Senate would never pass. I've been through that in Springfield. You speak up for your constituents. You do what's right, but at the end, when you spend all your time passing legislation in the House that you know is never going to see the light of day in the Senate, and meanwhile, while we are without a budget, we're without a defense bill, we're without an ag bill, we're without everything. I mean, we are standing in the road like a small child that doesn't know what to do, and because of failed leadership. So, anytime, their answer is, well, let's just wait and we'll take care of this later. Absolutely not. We have failed leadership in D.C. with these career politicians, and it's time to stand up and do something about it. And isn't it a shame that out of all the Republicans in D.C. that are serving as congressmen and women, that we have no leadership? We have such a problem trying to, find someone to stand up and fill that gap. So God bless Jim Jordan. I pray that everybody gets on board with him and we begin this process, because we're in trouble. And we have to understand it here in Illinois and nationwide. We like to point our fingers and blame the other side of the aisle, but we have problems because career politicians, of which I've took out every race I've run, they are the ones responsible for this. You go in the House and here in Springfield, you serve for 20 years, and then now you're serving for 10 years in Congress, and you want to serve more. But show me what you've done. Prove to me. Show me what you've done. And all you've done is expanded government. You've wasted our taxpayer dollars, and now you've got the nerve to stand up here and tell me that this is the time that we need experience in D.C. No, I don't need your kind of experience, Mr. Boss, because you have failed us.
Well, and one thing that I do want to talk about is the money. You got to follow the money. And Mike Bost, I mean, I don't know how much exactly he received from these woke companies like Bud Light, but I'm looking at his campaign donations here, and it's real simple. Just go to illinoissunshine.org. He's got campaign donations from JP Morgan Chase. And I've talked about JP Morgan Chase. There's been high levels of executives there. And, I've got to try to find that story. But the gist of it was that these high level executives, they were going back and forth on an email, Darren. And they were talking about these young women on Jeffrey Epstein's island, right? These are high executives with JP Morgan Chase. And they were referring to these women as Disney characters. Look up the story if you've got time later today, Darren. But they were going back and forth over email, and they were saying, bring beauty to the beast. And they were referring to these women who were being trafficked at Jeffrey Epstein's island. I think it was Jeffrey Epstein himself that they were going back and forth with, this JP Morgan executive. And, my eyes always light up and my eyebrows raise when I see campaign donations from places like JP Morgan Chase, from Bud Light. These are woke corporations who don't have the best interests of the American people at heart, and they hate us. They quite literally hate us. If there's nothing else, we know that the Bud Light situation, right? The Bud Light, who was it? The global CEO or something. He came out and he goes, who cares about America? And he goes, it didn't affect us all of that much, right? The Anheuser-Busch CEO, he wasn't the American one, but he was like the global CEO. He came out and he said, who really cares about America's boycott? So they don't care. They don't care about us at all. So your thoughts about the campaign donations that Mike Boss receives?
Well, you're right. I mean, it's telling. It's interesting because my 2 years as state representative and my 2 years as state senate, serving in those roles and those capacities, I didn't have these woke organizations sending me money because they knew what I stood for. I received one check from ComEd. And interestingly enough, I received that check about a year before all of the scandal broke with Mike Madigan. And I had wise campaign staff. We knew to hang on to not to cash that check because I will not be bought. And I ended up sending that check back. We held on to it for a few months, and because we smelled a rat, and that's what that's what's going on when you receive money from these organizations. There's unfortunately, I'm very straightforward on my supporters. You support me if you want to on what you know of me now, but don't you ever give me $1 expecting that you're going to call me up and say, hey, you better support this or you better support that. And when we see the level of over $50,000 of woke organizations sending my congressman money in just this last quarter, I think that pretty well, says it all. I mean, when he was a state representative, he voted against charter schools, voted against school choice. And yet you can go back and see the level of funding that was given during the 20 years from the Illinois Education Association. These bought and paid for politicians are the demise of our country. And that's why we need term limits. That's why we need men and women stepping up to the plate, running for office. It's called accountability, and it's a good thing. And for someone to stand up and what I heard Sunday night and declare that basically, he deserves this position. He's worked hard and been a public servant, and he deserves this. And that was the overall resounding message. And I've heard it before. I heard it when I first ran for state representative in the 2018 primary. I heard it before, and the people are smarter than that. With the money that he's garnered from these woke organizations, there's going to be a campaign to smear me, I believe, like we've never seen. But the people are waking up. They're smarter than that, and they know that we have got to have men and women to stand up, push back against this establishment nonsense, and truly represent the people. That's what's missing. Truly represent the people. And when I've said this before with you, when I realized that our heartstrings were being tugged through this mission field of government, and then the next question was, okay, where do I fit? Where do I serve? And when the first thing I did was Google, conservative review and the Heritage Foundation to check out these conservative scorecards, I was appalled that I didn't even know at the time how liberal, my congressman's voting record was. And it was just like, that's where I belong. And anybody can do that. Go to, like you said, IllinoisSunshine.org, go to these conservative PACs or these conservative groups, look up these scorecards, and you'll understand very quickly why our state and our nation is in a mess and why we are void of conservative leadership.
I know. Well, and I saw Mary Miller in Hayworth the other day, and, I made mention. I was like, look, and you have to go back more than just a couple of votes, folks, because the last couple of votes, if they're in a campaign cycle, they're going to be voting correctly because they know that they're under a magnifying glass, right? But you've got to go back and you've got to look at votes that happened in crucial time periods like 2021, 2022, when it came to the Ukraine-Russia conflict. Now, I do want to shift gears a little bit, Darren, because I do want your reaction to Governor J.B. Pritzker here. This Illinois landlord, so he's been charged with this hate crime after allegedly stabbing this Muslim 6-year-old boy to death, wounding the mother. This was a horrific act. They've gripped onto this story and really politicized the issue. And, Governor J.B. Pritzker came out with a statement. He says, to take a 6-year-old child's life in the name of bigotry is nothing short of evil. The Illinois State Police, they came out and issued a statement that the public needs to remain vigilant and aware. They said there's no, what would they say, actionable threat, mass threat to Illinoisans at this time, but they're, checking intelligence, they're checking communications and activities. And they said that you have to stay vigilant of violence and hate crimes due to the Israeli-Hamas conflict. I don't even really want to call it that. It's not a conflict. Conflict implies that, they're both fighting. Really, it's just Hamas that has been going after. And I don't need to tell you that because you're a man of God. You understand that this is all prophecy, right? That God said that, hey, I'm going to bring you guys all together into your own country. And the Jews have been, it dates back to the Roman Empire. It goes back even before that in the Old Testament. They've been destroyed by so many people since the founding of Israel in 1948. I mean, they've been defending themselves. But your reaction to this story out of Illinois, a landlord, and I've just got the story here. He was charged with a hate crime after allegedly stabbing this Muslim 6-year-old boy.
Well, my heart breaks, for the situation. My heart breaks for for the hatred that does exist. My heart breaks for any time anyone is loses life here in Illinois. But at the end of the day, I sat back and I kind of asked myself, where's the outcry to hundreds of children that have died in DCFS care? And finally, Mark Smith, DCFS director, announces that he's going to resign, but he's not going to resign to the end of the year. Why hasn't J.B. Pritzker fired him in the last 4 years? That he failed right off the bat. Where's the outcry to an illegal a van full of illegal citizens that was being chased by the Illinois State Police on I-57 in southern Illinois about 3 months ago? And when the van was finally stopped, I believe a 6-year-old child was in that van, was on the verge of death because the child had not been properly cared for. Where's the outcry there? I think we've seen that with Joe Biden and with J.B. Pritzker, that they like to pick and choose as to whatever's going on at the time. To make the story. Like I said, my heart breaks any time for this. But
Yeah.
where is the outcry that while this is taking place every day, especially here in Illinois with our children in DCFS, that's and now with these these non-citizens, these people who are here illegally, making a home for them, where's the outcry over the thousands of children that I believe have died and basically at the hands of Governor J.B. Pritzker failing to do his due diligence and his job, but yet to stand and like I said, I understand. My heart breaks for them, but why aren't we talking about this literally every day? With the situations that he has created that is allowing this.
Right, exactly. And you bring up, the non-citizen issue. I've actually personally tried to call the Springfield police about Gabriel Calixto. I don't know if you've heard that story at all, Darren, but I'm assuming he's still at large. There's no record of him being in custody. I don't know where he went. They assume maybe he went back down to Mexico. He was here illegally, overstayed his DACA. And he was in and out of the Illinois Department of Corrections for kidnapping women, for being disorderly, and he only served a couple of years. Ultimately, the guy stabs a girl in Springfield, Illinois. I'm sure you heard about Emma Schaefer, and she
Right.
died. And it's just like, where's the outrage? We don't even know if that guy's at least this guy, we got him in custody, which is great. I'm not saying that this guy is terrible, but the politicizing here, and it's so quick. How quick they politicize that issue. I mean, in Brussels, I know this is in, oh gosh, Belgium, I think. I don't know. I know it's across the world, but they were yelling Allah Akbar and shooting people. So this is a global event where we're seeing hate crimes on both sides of the issue aisles. Here with Palestinians committing hate crimes, you've got people protesting in the streets, and it's odd that they gripped onto this one story. And yeah, I just thought it was something to get your reaction from, and I'm glad that you joined me on the program. We got to take a quick break, but Darren Bailey, anything else you'd like to add?
No, next Friday, Effingham, Illinois, the 27th. Get your tickets. Go to our webpage, baileyforillinois.com. Donald Trump Jr. is coming. It is going to be a power-packed evening when he addresses the crowd and gives everyone an update on what's going on. So looking forward to that, and I'm looking forward to see you. We're currently on. We're every day we're busy here in Southern Illinois, and looking forward to serving as the 12th congressional congressman and disrupting the process in D.C. and returning government back to the hands of the people.
I'm so excited to see you do it, Darren, and I know you will. Have a great rest of your day, and are you out on the farm?
I am sitting outside in my vehicle. That's why, yep, I am right now. So the guys are headed out to the fields as we speak, and we've given them the directions for the day. So we pray for a safe day for everyone and a safe harvest all across Illinois and this great land.
Wonderful. Darren, have a great rest of your day. God bless, my friend.
All right. Thank you.
All right, we're going to be back here, folks, on the other side of this break. And what have I got to tell you about? Well, speaking of the public school teacher, HAMAS, they are celebrating, this public school teacher is in New York, celebrating the slaughter of women and children. He calls it a successful military campaign. We're going to be chatting about that here next on The Buzz. They let Joe Biden out there, and they let him go out there and do this interview on 60 Minutes, and you guessed it, it was a total train wreck. 309-451-9299. Hey, thanks so much for listening. I so do appreciate it. You guys have no idea how much I love you. And let's pull up a chair, grab a cup of coffee. The morning buzz. Okay, it's the morning buzz, and we love to have a cup of coffee and talk about what's going on in the world. And hyper escalation is upon us, folks. That's 2,000 troops are headed over to support Israel. And you guys know, as a Christian Zionist, I totally agree with supporting Israel, but I don't agree with the military. So I don't agree with fueling this war. I wouldn't doubt if we're giving money to both sides and we're fueling both sides. We already gave the $6 billion to Iran. Janet Yellen's out there. She's saying, "Oh, we can afford this. The American economy is great." She's sitting up there saying everything that is Mearsheimer's warning. Look up Mearsheimer's warning. This is Mearsheimer's warning on steroids, because we haven't even talked about Taiwan yet. We could be at a three-front world conflict, China and Taiwan. Just wait for that, because it's coming. 18 months under this administration, and Janet Yellen is up there, and she's admitting in front of the entire world that they want this world conflict. Make no mistake. They sent 2,000 American troops. They're preparing to deploy there. That's troops on the ground, boots on the ground. Possibly, we're looking at that. And then we've already got 10,000 souls on those aircraft carriers. These are massive aircraft carriers we've already sent over there. So all together, we're looking at about 12,500. All it takes is one bullet. We won't even know where that bullet fires from. One bullet to kill an American serviceman, and there we have it. Full out, like a mass response. We're going to have a mass U.S. involvement in this war, and we're also dealing with Russia, Ukraine. So yeah, it's not rainbows and kittens this morning, but I do have to tell you a little bit about New York City before I get into Joe Biden on 60 Minutes. New York City, there's a public school teacher out there, and be prepared. You send your kids off to school this morning, you might be driving them in. Be prepared for them to have questions, and be prepared for them to come into contact with teachers like this. Believe it or not, these people exist. There is a public school teacher who's praising Hamas, celebrating the slaughter of women and children out there, and he celebrated specifically the BLM Chicago image that was shared out there. It's an infamous image. It was deleted because they got all kinds of backlash from it. Reagan Deering, who's running in the 88th State House District, she was calling for an investigation into all of our state monies, all of your taxpayer money, because we've in the past given money to convicted felons. $300,000 went to a convicted felon who led the BLM group. It's a terrorist organization. BLM is a terrorist organization. They're radicals. Okay, so this New York public school teacher going viral for celebrating the Hamas terrorists who paraglided into a music festival and just started killing people. This was a surprise attack. This is a New York public school teacher. His name is Mohammed Jihad Ahmed. Mohammed Jihad Ahmed. I know. I'd be shocked if he was the only New York City Public Teachers Union member who did this. So he's a teachers union member. Before we get to Muhammad, I want to take a moment really quick, because Eric Adams, in a rare moment of sanity, and he has them on occasion, Eric Adams, he's a Democrat mayor. This line stood out in one of his speeches to me, and I'm going to play his full speech here on the Morning Buzz. You can see him live in studio, or you can see him and the video clip that I play. I'm live in studio, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Before I play the whole speech, this is the line that just stood out to me. He says, "We are not all right when right here in the city of New York, you have people who celebrate when at the same time the devastation is taking place in our city." So let's take a listen to the entire speech. Stick with me. This is good speech, and this is a rare moment of sanity coming from Eric Adams. Here we go.
This morning on my briefing, my special counsel, Lisa Zomberg, said something that I want us all to acknowledge. We've been through some tough time, New Yorkers. We are tough people. We saw the center of our trade collapse. We saw some of the horrific actions that played out on the stage of our city and our country. But she said something that hits me to my soul. She stated to our team, we are not all right. We are not all right when we see young girls pulled from their home and dragged through the streets. We are not all right when we see grandmothers being pulled away from their homes and children shot in front of their families. We are not all right when right here in the city of New York, you have those who celebrate at the same time when the devastation is taking place in our city. We are not all right when Hamas believes that they are fighting on behalf of something in their destructive, despicable action that carried out. We are not all right when we still have hostages who have not come home to their family. We are not all right.
So it goes on, and I just think that it was a powerful speech, and like I said, a rare moment of sanity coming from Eric Adams, the New York City mayor. And really, what he was saying there, that line stood out to me. He goes, "You have people who celebrate when at the same time there's devastation taking place in our own city." And he talks about women and children being drug out into the. He's talking about the violent crime going on in New York City. Who knows who's coming through our southern border? We don't know. I've been saying it since I've gotten behind the microphone. If you live in a big city, get out of there, because that's where a lot of these people are residing. We just had William J. Kelly, a Chicago reporter, tell us that they're residing in airports, police stations, these migrants, and they're given $9,000 for rental assistance. Yes, here in the state of Illinois, $9,000 for each migrant. We're looking at $45 million state program that Governor J.B. Pritzker signed off, and he's given them rental assistance that includes a starter kit for furniture. And they're the movers. They're paying for the movers to move them into God knows where, Lincoln College, all of these family units that are popping up here in Bloomington, although there's not really a demand for it right now. Who knows where they're going to wind up? So back to my friend, not my friend, Muhammad. He's a public school teacher in New York, and he was originally flagged for switching his profile picture to this graphic of of this paraglider flying the Palestinian flag. You've seen the image. This graphic was originally shared by Black Lives Matter Chicago. This is a political organization where a bunch of bougie white people were guilted into giving all of their money. Bougie white people said, we'll give all our money to Black Lives Matter in 2020, 2021 because of the George Floyd riots. And that's really what the organization, they took all of that money, they laundered that money, they used it for nefarious reasons, or for nefarious causes. And they were, lining their pockets, these people in the Black Lives Matter organization, specifically Black Lives Matter Chicago. But Kat, they're just sharing criticism of the Israeli government. Why can't people criticize the Israeli government? Aren't you a free speech absolutist? Shut up with all of that, okay? You shared a photo of a paraglider flying in, and they paraglided into a music festival of innocent Israelis. They raped people, they killed people, and you're saying you disagree with the government of the people who are being raped and killed. Not unlike the students at Harvard. I talked about that yesterday. You are saying you support the people who did the murdering and raping. Stop it with that. Can't you just criticize the Israeli government? This is not what we're talking. We're talking about the people who paraglided into a music festival, raped women, and killed people like barbarians. Okay, and you're siding with the murdering and the raping. That's what you're talking about. Okay, so stop with that question. Can't you just criticize the Israeli government? No, that's not what we're talking about here. Uh, this New York City public school teacher, he changed his profile picture to, of course, that infamous photo of the paraglider. He said that this was a successful military campaign. That's what he called it, and I'm quoting him directly. He was contacted by Fox News. This was after Muhammad, the teacher, lashed out at a bunch of people on Twitter who expressed disapproval with him for putting that paraglider photo up as his profile picture. Here's what Muhammad said. He goes, so-called Israel is a settler colony, which isn't true, that was invented and only continues to exist through terrorism, dispossession, ethnic cleansing, and ongoing incremental genocide. So what he's describing there is actually Hamas. And look no further than the actual proof, okay? Palestinian territories, that's all they are. There is no country called Palestine. There are no such thing as a Palestinian. You'd have to be like we're called Americans. The reason why we're called Americans is because we live in America. There is no Palestine. Okay. The word Palestinian is actually Hebrew for invader, and that was the term the Israelis used to describe these people who have been constantly invading them since the birth of their country in 1948, since they rebuilt after the Roman Empire wiped out all of the Jews. And in Ezekiel, God said that all of the Jewish people would come together and he'd give them a country. And prophecy came to pass. That's what happened after 2,000 years. And now they've been fighting to exist because guess what? God chose Israel, and they're envious about that. They're envious that Israel is blessed and that God loves Israel. We love God. That's why God blesses America. We love God. Now, if we abandon God, whew, we're not going to continue to be blessed. Okay, so God blesses Israel and America in ways that we can't even begin to imagine, right? Just the fact that Israel continues to exist proves that God loves Israel, okay? For by all, and this is supernatural that they're even still a country. I mean, they started out with like maybe 2 million people after the Roman Empire wiped them out and they rebuilt in 1948. And then they've built themselves up to about 8 million or so people. And to the that would be the east of them, to the east of them, they've got 300 million or so Arabs and Muslims who pretty much all of them want to see them eradicated. Okay. So by every metric, Israel should not exist, but it does. And it's because of God's divine supernatural power. And here's Muhammad. He's sitting there and he's like saying the complete opposite. Okay. So this is not a settler colony. In fact, they, they, uh, they are the ones who are constantly giving up land, offering land. There's been, I think, 5 within the past decade land offers for in exchange for peace. And these Hamas terrorist organizations, Iran, it's all the same. All of them, Iran, Palestine, Hamas. They're the ones who reject those peace offers anyway. So the school didn't return Fox News's request for comment. So the school was reached out to by Fox News, and Fox News was like, "Hey, can you care to comment about this public school teacher who says that, he said that it's a successful military campaign what happened to those people in the music festival." And I think what we have here is that the left is finally starting to realize how anti-Semitic the Democrat Party has become and is. And if members on the left are shocked at how this happened, I want you to take a look into who is teaching your children, our children. Okay. If you're shocked at how, leftists became these big anti Semites, look no further than the public school. Okay. Look no further than these public school teachers like Muhammad here. All right. I do have to take a quick break, but when we come back, really excited to talk about this one. Joe Biden, he was on 60 Minutes. One of his handlers thought it would be a great idea to get him out there for an interview. Our great commander in chief, I think this was supposed to project some sort of competence in our commander in chief, that this was supposed to, make him look good, this interview, but it did not do that. I'm going to be going through Joe Biden, total train wreck on 60 Minutes. That's next. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. If you're watching, go ahead and smash the like button, share this out with your friends. Let's get to your comments here. As long as Illinois residents and taxpayers are denied low income IHEAP services and can barely pay their rent and bills and given the runaround and harassed by banks, IRS, yep, state departments, and collections, fintech. 9,000 is extreme and a slap in the face to taxpayers of the state and country. Yeah. So you are, of course, talking about the $9,000. This is through a state program. Governor J.B. Pritzker approved of this $9,000 going to each migrant. I'm not saying $9,000 total. I'm saying each migrant is going to get $9,000 in rental assistance. You would probably like some rental assistance. I know you would. But guess who's getting it? It's the migrants. And on top of that, they get a starter kit of furniture, a stipend for furniture. They also get these movers to come in and move that furniture into these places. I don't know where they're planning on moving these people. That's a whole nother topic. I have no idea. Maybe the multifamily housing that's popping up here in Bloomington Normal. Um, we've talked with private developers. Private developers say that there is not a demand that high, that they don't have, like, they have occupancy still in their apartments, and we're building multifamily housing units like it's out of style, right? I think every other week there's a housing development approved here in Bloomington Normal, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because there's this mass exodus that's happening right now in the state of Illinois. Now, McLean County has kind of weathered that through the last couple of years. We haven't lost population, but we haven't gained it either. Despite what people will tell you, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, all of these Rivian employees, they're coming and they're we need to house these people." So, you know, I've talked to some folks, and I've actually experienced myself. I know somebody who has come here. She's on a work visa, and she's coming here from Mexico, and she's on a work visa, and she signed a 5-year contract with Rivian. So you're sadly mistaken if you think that all of those 7,000 odd jobs that they say are coming to McLean County are for McLean County residents, or for people in the state of Illinois. Okay, so these are not people who are, currently living in McLean County. They're not people who are currently living in Illinois, moving to McLean County. These are uh, people on work visas. So we're looking at, Lincoln College possibly being renovated to house some of these migrants. It's going to start trickling downstate because there are what 20,000. Some I'm sure if that's probably the right number. 20,000 illegal immigrants who have been shipped to Chicago. And they're going to get $9,000 each. Where are they going to spend that $9,000 to be housed? Think about it. I mean, it's a $9,000 rental assistance program for these migrants, and they're going to be housed where? Come on. We've got all of these multifamily units popping up. They're going to come here, and they're going to rent these apartments for 9,000. They've got that's a few months rent. They're covered for rent for a few months. And I know, I share your frustration. You're a taxpayer. You are denied, uh, probably low income assistance. As an American, right? You can barely pay your bills. You can barely pay your rent. I'm right there with you. And then you get harassed by the banks. Yesterday, in order to even get some checks, I had to get a check, a couple of checks. I don't have a checkbook. I need to get one, but um, to just get a sheet of checks, they were like, "Yeah, give me $3." This is crap. What do you mean? I gotta pay $3 for my checks? Yeah, and that's just the way the banks screw you. IRS constantly screwing you. The bureaucrats are constantly screwing you. If you are an American and you are low income, forget about it. The services aren't meant for you. The services are meant to prop up those who don't even have citizenship. That's what these services are for. They're not meant for you. So if you're applying for them and you're an American, good luck. You're going to be caught up in all kinds of red tape. I know, I've been there. For medical insurance, at one time I was using like some sort of low income medical insurance. And at the time of paying the IRS, tax time came around, I got screwed, completely shafted, and I had to pay in a ton of money for simply using the service that they claim is so great and that is going to help everybody. Actually, it screws low-income people to get on these kinds of, low-income medical insurance things. So, it's designed to screw you and help people who are not even citizens. That's what these services are meant to do. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. This is the Morning Buzz. Whew, we have had a packed show. We talked to William J. Kelly. He's a Chicago reporter and he's Emmy Award. He's so good. And he talks with me this morning about this $9,000 going to each migrant. Yes, you heard me correctly. Each migrant. That's not the total, I think it was like $45 million or something outrageous like that for this rental assistance program. So these migrants who are in the Chicago O'Hare Airport, they're going to get a nice fat $9,000 check. And that's for rental assistance. On top of that, they're going to get movers. They're going to get a starter kit for furniture. I mean, they're set. They're ready to go. Now, the only question is, where are they going to go? Okay, they've got the $9,000 in hand right here in Bloomington Normal. I've been questioning it. I'm like, what the heck is going on here? Why do we got all these multifamily housing units popping up? And you talk to one of the largest BN private developers in town here. He's a developer. He's got, I mean, pretty much a stronghold here when it comes to housing in Bloomington Normal. You talk to him, and he's like, I don't know what the hell they're talking about, a housing shortage or crisis and that we need to build more houses. I'm at 90% occupancy, 92% occupancy. We always shoot for 95. I'm not even close to what I always shoot for. And they're trying to convince us that there's not this mass exodus from Illinois. I mean, the numbers, the US Census data, despite what JB says, the US Census data says that there's a mass exodus. I don't see where there's just a flood of people coming to McLean County. Yeah, Rivian, State Farm, I get that. But then you start to talk to some of these people who work there and you find out, oh, wait a second. They've signed 5-year contracts with Rivian. They're from Mexico. They've signed these 5-year contracts. They're from Mexico. They're on a work visa. And you're like, wait a second, people aren't moving here from throughout the state of Illinois into McLean County. They're signing these contracts. They're getting this government housing. They're getting the work visas. It's outrageous. It's insane that 9,000. It's just a slap in your face. And yeah, I know you're like, I can't even pay my rent, Cat. $9,000 sounds about great, about great right now to pay my rent. Nah, you don't get it because you're not an you're an American. Hell, I might just move to Mexico, try to come back in and go that route. All right, I'm gonna be back here on the other side. This is the Morning Buzz. Hey, good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. If you're watching, go ahead, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. We talked with Darren Bailey. I talked with him a lot in the 7 o'clock hour. What we chat about? Well, one, we talked about Mike Bost. I guess there was this campaign event, and not kidding you, Mike Bost says, I don't even know why you're running against me, Darren. So that just shows you how to touch a lot of these Congress people, these Congress critters. I like to call them Congress critters, because that's really what they are. I mean, they haven't built anything themselves. They've built a career in politics, and they don't live outside of that world, and they don't understand the frustrations of their constituency. So Darren, he's running against Mike Bost, and Mike Bost is like, I don't even know why you're running against me. Well, Mike, it could be that you voted several times for Ukraine supplement aid packages. Go back, fact check me on that. Mike Bost has voted consistently to send aid packages over to Ukraine. The only congresswoman who has not voted to do that in the state of Illinois. Now we've got I don't know how many. I think it's a few. I forget how many. We're one down in the last couple of years, Congress people, because of the mass exodus from the state of Illinois. We actually had to cut a congressman. Um, but she has voted consistently not to overspend in that war, specifically Ukraine and Russia. Now all of a sudden you start to see Mike Moss, Darren Hood clean up their voting records, because they're running for reelection. Okay. And I'm glad that Mike Moss, Darren LaHood, they're both supporting Jim Jordan for speaker. That's great. But at the end of the day, I want to look at what you've been doing for the past 5 years. I want to look at what you've been doing since you've been in office. And I don't want to look at the last 3 months. Yeah, sure, you can clean it up 3 months prior to, 2020. We're getting into 2024 here. That means they're running again. So they're going to start cleaning up their vote records. If you want to check it out, go to illinoissunshine.org. That's how you can find out their monies, where their monies are coming from, their campaign dollars, which is important. And then I just go to C-SPAN and I look at their votes. We're gonna be back in the 8 o'clock hour. Whew, I mean, this show is just flying by. We talked with William J. Kelly in the 6 o'clock hour. Then we talked with Darren Bailey in the 7 o'clock hour. In the 8 o'clock hour, I'm so excited because I got to tell you about Joe Biden. Yes, Joe Biden was out there. Somebody thought it would be a great idea for him to get out there and do an interview on 60 Minutes. And I mean, this was a pretty friendly situation, but the show host, so the guy doing the interviewing of Joe Biden, he inadvertently threw Joe Biden under the bus and he called him old. So I'm going to be unpacking that 60 Minutes interview next on the Buzz. It's Cities 92.9. See me live in studio. Kat Peterson 929. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. Don Raines, that's news this morning. He has announced that he's going to be running in the 105th State House District. Yesterday, we talked with Reagan Deering. That's the 88th House District, your election headquarters. That's Cities 92.9. I like to keep you updated on that kind of stuff. Now, one thing that I do want to chat about is Joe Biden. And I don't know, for reasons known only to the people who are working for him, or that's these people need to be blacklisted from political communications. Why in the world would he have Joe Biden go out there and do an interview? Joe Biden was allowed to give an interview on 60 Minutes, and maybe it was meant to project some sort of leadership while the wheels are coming off of the planet. You know that. I knew that. Know that there's 2,000 troops being deployed as we speak to Israel to support Israel, and I get that. I know. I know. You have been conditioned to want that. They've been messing with your brain matter, and they've been saying we must get involved, must get involved, must get involved for the last week. And look, I'm a Christian Zionist. I believe in the existence of Israel. I believe God chose Israel, and I believe America chose God. And for those reasons, that's why the Palestinians and Hamas, they chant things like "Death to America" or "Death to Israel" or something like that. Right? I believe that that's the reason. The whole reason is because they are envious that our God has continued to bless us here in America because we chose God. And he continues to bless us for that decision, for our decision to be a Christian nation. And w- and because we are a Judeo-Christian nation here in America, Judeo-Christian values. And they hate that. They hate that we've been blessed by God because we chose God. They also hate the fact that Israel has been chosen by God to exist. I mean, Ezekiel tells us that, and God says that he's going to gather the Jewish people and give them their own country. That was prophecy. It came to pass. And they gathered after the Roman Empire wiped them all out. And they started out, small country, and they've built themselves out to 8 million strong. And they've continued to see attacks against them. These are offensive attacks by the Hamas, by Iran, by the Palestinians. And I mean, look no further than the actual facts. Palestine is not a country. There's things called Palestinian territories. Um, And, this guy, this New York City public school teacher, he gets out there and he's like, so-called Israel is a settler colony, and it was only invented and continues to exist through terrorism, ethnic cleansing, and ongoing incremental genocide. Genocide? Are you serious right now? Because if you look at the numbers, we're looking at 300 million Arabs and Muslims over in that region. Then you look over and it's 8 million Jews. That's it. You want to talk about genocide? Let's look at the numbers. How come there's 8 million Jews? They've got a sliver of land about that big. Okay. And then you've got all of this land over here, land that has been given over to them by Israel in exchange for peace, but they don't want the land. You see, they just want the eradication of Jews. And, shame on that New York public school teacher, really. He said that it was a successful military campaign. Um, the paraglider, that image that was shared out by BLM Chicago, the paraglider came in. They came in and then they slaughtered these Jewish people in this music festival, and it was truly sad. If you're watching, go ahead and smash that like button. We are going to be back talking about Joe Biden. This morning, I did also talk about this story, and this is what they're using, this 6-year-old Muslim boy, which is tragic. And, it's so sad that we've got crazy people. Now, I haven't looked into this guy a whole lot, and I plan on doing that. I plan on looking up his past record. This is an Illinois landlord out of Plainfield, Illinois. He's been charged with a hate crime after allegedly stabbing a Muslim 6-year-old boy. This is a hate crime. He wounded this mother. So here's the story. This 71-year-old guy, he stabbed them, targeted them, due to them being Muslim and the ongoing Middle Eastern conflict involving Hamas and Israelis. So the ISP, what you need to know, the Illinois State Police, they came out yesterday and they said that there was going to be an increase of hate crime and to remain vigilant and aware. The Will County Sheriff's Department said the incident took place in Plainfield Township. This is a really small community, just 40 miles south of Chicago. I kind of grew up around that area, but officers responded to the 71-year-old's residence, where they found him sitting near his driveway. The victims, his tenants, were discovered soon after in the bedroom. So he stabbed them, I think, in his place. From what I understand. But yeah, this is something that uh, Governor J.B. Pritzker, the Democrats, are gripping onto, and they are using this as a way to, talk about bigotry. We've got Governor J.B. Pritzker out releasing a statement talking about how every single Illinoisan, including Muslim, Jewish, and Palestinian neighbors, deserve to live free from the threat of such evil and violence. And he talks about the Muslim Palestinian brothers. And, JB is a Jew, uh, allegedly, I think, and he's not an Orthodox Jew by any means. But what's so disappointing is that we have things like this happening all of the time. There are hate crimes committed against people all of the time. Non-citizens stabbing young women in Springfield, Illinois, and getting away with it at large still. But yet he calls attention to this one. This Illinois landlord, I have to look into his record, but I wouldn't doubt that he had maybe priors. I don't know. We're going to be back talking a little bit more about Joe Biden, and then I'll get back to that story. Woo! Hey, good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. You guys can go ahead, smash the like button on the Facebook Live. I'm on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble live in studio. Yes, we are going to be getting to this story. An Illinois landlord. This is a tragic story. It really is. But what's even more tragic is that we've got Democrats and these bureaucrats, they are gripping onto this story and they are fueling the flames of hate and violence, and they're politicizing this even further. Okay, it's a political issue. You've got Palestinians, pro-Palestinians in the streets. They've got the Palestinian flags. They want something to happen. Believe me, I think that they want something to happen because we had the Illinois State Police yesterday issue some sort of press release saying, hey, be vigilant, be aware of hate crimes, be aware of violence in the streets. And they said there's no actionable mass violence like threat to Illinoisans. Like there's no bomb threat or anything like that right now. But they said you need to remain vigilant, keep your head on a swivel. And I agree. Yes, you have to keep your head on a swivel always, because this kind of stuff happens every single day because we are a pro-criminal state. And these criminals get away with all kinds of crimes, including this Illinois landlord. I don't know if he had a record prior to this, but he stabbed a 6-year-old Palestinian Muslim boy to death, and he wounded his 32-year-old mother. He's been charged with 2 counts of hate crime, in addition to first-degree murder, attempted first-degree murder, and aggravated battery with a deadly weapon. Okay, this kind of stuff happens all of the time. Stabbings, criminals stabbing people. They're gripping onto the story and they're politicizing and they're fueling the flames. They are fueling the flames here. We know that there's pro-Palestinian protests in Chicago and in large cities across the country. And this story, I don't know. I mean, this was a horrific act of hate. I'm not saying that it's not hateful. I'm not saying that it's not wrong, but they are gripping onto this story and they are going to really, I mean, they're gonna cause some mass protests, I think, with this story. It's gonna be similar to that of a George Floyd situation. I truly do believe that pro-Palestinian protests. We're gonna get into that. We talked with Darren Bailey about that, and really, what his response was, "Hey, this kind of stuff happens all of the time." We had Emma Schaefer in Springfield, Illinois. She was stabbed by a non-citizen. Okay, somebody who was overstaying his DACA. He had priors. He served in and out of the Illinois Department of Corrections, and he stabbed this woman, and he is free. He's on the loose. From what I understand, they never got him into custody, the Springfield police. So we're gonna get to that here in just a minute. But like I said, I'm live studio. Check it out. That's Cat Peterson 929 on YouTube. Joe Biden, who did this? I don't understand. For reasons only known to the people who are working for him, who at this point need to be blacklisted from political communications. Who decided this would be a good idea? To let Joe Biden out there, and they allowed him to do this interview on 60 Minutes. Maybe it was meant to project leadership when the wheels are coming off. I mean, like I said, this is breaking yesterday. This is huge news. We could be potentially in war. We've got 2,000 troops deployed. They're potentially going to enter into this war in support of Israel. On top of that, we've got 10,000 troops that were sent via these 2 aircraft carriers. So in total, it's going to be about 12,500 people, because there was another couple hundred in the aircraft carrier. What was it? What do you call it? The aircraft carrier battle group. That's what they call them. So about 12,500 American souls potentially could be lost in this war. And I mean, I can see it right now. The headline: breaking, American servicemen killed, and Joe Biden demands a response. So that we are looking at a two-front world conflict. We've got Ukraine, Russia still. That didn't go away. We've got Ukraine and Russia still. We've got the Israel and Hamas. And Janet Yellen is up there. She was asked, hey, can we afford another war? And she goes, absolutely. She was almost giddy about it. So there she is, saying the quiet part out loud, admitting that, hey, we're going to get into war. And yeah, it's not cutesy time. It's not rainbows, kittens, and butterflies. Nope, nope, nope. It's only going to get worse. And we never had this with Donald Trump as the president, did we? We never had this. But hey, at least we don't have any more mean tweets, right? So in this interview, even in the friendliest of situation, Biden giving an interview is always a risk. The last time he sat down with 60 Minutes, it reeked of just being derpy. It was just a rancid derpiness. But this time, this guy, he's a show host. His name's Scott Pelley. he inadvertently actually threw Joe Biden under the bus, which is kind of interesting. I'm going to go ahead and share the audio with you. This was on 60 Minutes. Just pay attention to how Scott refers to Joe Biden here. And I think he inadvertently throws him under the bus for being old. Here we go.
As we spoke to the president, his Secretary of State was in Israel. His defense secretary was at a NATO meeting on Ukraine. America's oldest president seemed tired from directing all of this. As we spoke to
America's oldest president seemed tired from directing all of this. Not the first time Joe Biden seemed tired during an interview. I think we've all seen the interviews where he seems really tired, but let's talk about that last line, because the interview was supposed to project competence. Okay. I think that, with this interview, they wanted to project leadership while the wheels are coming off of the planet. I mean, I told you two front world conflict. Okay. Ukraine, Russia, Israel, Hamas. And this was supposed to project competence in our leader, our commander in chief. America's oldest president seemed tired from directing all of this. That was throwing Joe Biden under the bus there, Mr. 60 Minutes interviewer, Scott. It wouldn't be Joe Biden attempting to speak in public without his train of thought getting derailed and causing a toxic chemical spill. See what I did there? I'm talking about East Palestine, Ohio. Also Joe Biden's fault. But we've got Joe Biden attempting to speak in public, and he just totally got derailed. And Pelly had to guess what he meant when he goes, don't. And this was really odd. So I got to try to find this audio. I think that I'm looking for it, but I can't find it. So basically, Joe Biden gets out there and, the 60 Minutes interviewer, he goes, what would you say to people who are wanting to cross this border? And Joe Biden goes, don't. And it was odd. And my gut says that what he really wanted to say, instead of don't, when he meant don't cross the border, when Pelly had to guess, hey, what do you mean by your don't. And Joe Biden clarifies, he goes, I mean, don't cross the border. My gut tells me that he wanted to start singing Don't Stop Believing. Don't stop believing. And Joe Biden loves that song, but he forgot where he was. And he was about ready to start singing Don't stop believing. But the low light was Biden being asked if he wanted to run again. Okay, so this goes back to the people who run Biden needing to get blacklisted for incompetence. Okay, so they should prepare him to answer this question. The question was, why do you want to run again? This is one of the most important questions that you are going to be asked on the campaign trail, whether that be for president, state rep, who knows? You're going to be asked, why do you want to run? And it needs to be a question that you're prepared to answer. For Donald Trump, he's running to get revenge on everyone on anyone who has fallen victim, including himself, and you, me, who you fall victim to the weaponization of Twitter, Facebook, big tech, DOJ, FBI, bureaucrats, the Department of Education. If you're a parent, you definitely fall victim to the public school system. So Donald Trump is running to get revenge. Joe Biden, he's running for this reason. He takes a really long pause, so it kind of takes a while for him to get out why he's running. But he asked, he's asked, why are you running again? Let's take a listen to Joe's response. Here we go.
Are you sure that you want to run again?
Yes, because I'm sure. Look, when I ran, I said the world's at an inflection point. The world's changing, but we have an opportunity to make it. So imagine if we were able to succeed in getting the Middle East put in place where we have normalization of relations. I think we can do that. Imagine what happens if we, in fact, unite all of Europe and Putin is finally put down where he cannot cause the kind of trouble he's been causing. We have enormous opportunities.
So there you have it. There he is, Joe Biden, in so many words, after a really long, awkward, uncomfortable pause, essentially says that he's running for reelection because he wants to be president of Israel and Europe. He made no mention of the American people. Did you catch that? No mention. He's running for reelection because he wants to be a president of Israel and of Europe. He made no mention of the American people. Why? Because he doesn't care about you. Joe Biden, he needs to be put in a home. He doesn't need to be running for president. He doesn't even know why he's running. He took this really weird, awkward pause, and in so many words, he essentially said that he was running for reelection because he wants to be president of Israel and Europe. Donald Trump has made it clear he wants to run for you. He wants to run for you. He wants to run really to get revenge. And I'm excited to see that revenge on anyone who has fallen victim, revenge for anyone who's fallen victim to the weaponization of the DOJ, the IRS, the FBI, the Department of Ed, big tech. All right. Well, I do have to take a break, but when we come back, I've got a really fun story for you, actually. So, thieves, they're starting to get more and more brazen every single day, and this story may be hard to bear. An unwanted guest stole some merchandise from a store in Canada right in front of the owner and didn't even try to hide it. I've got a funny story. On the other side, you're going to want to tune in. Visit me on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Rumble. Cat Peterson 929 on YouTube. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. We are going to get to a really funny story, and it's going to be so much. I don't even think you can bear it. Bear it. But yes, the Biden administration, he's got troops out there, 2,000 people on the ground. And then on top of that, you can't miss this. We've already got 2 aircraft carriers that were sent there, 10,000 people. So we're looking at about 12,500. About troops going over to the Middle East, and we're going to support Israel. And look, I am I am a Christian Zionist. Okay, I believe in I believe that Israel should exist and that it should defend itself. I don't believe in fueling and escalating. This is hyper escalation. I don't believe in escalation. Um, and that is exactly what that is. Janet Yellen says that the American economy is doing great. We can afford 2 wars at once. She doesn't give a rat's ass about you, about me. She doesn't give a rat's ass that we are dealing with inflation. We can't afford rent. And JB Pritzker doesn't care about you not affording rent. Guess what JB Pritzker did? He just signed $45 million, pissed it away, and gave $9,000 to each illegal immigrant. Each one. That's not $9,000 flat. That's $9,000 per illegal immigrant. We're looking at about 20,000, I would say, odd immigrants that have gone to O'Hare Airport. They're taking up residency there, and they are getting rental assistance for $9,000. That's a few months' rent. Where are they going to go, you ask? Well, they'll probably go to the multifamily housing that McLean County is currently building for God knows who, because they try to tell you that there's a housing crisis, but I've never really believed that because there's a mass exodus. Like, I don't know who's moving into McLean County. Now, I'm not saying there's not a demand for housing, but I don't think it's the demand for housing that we think it is, okay, or that they're trying to pitch it as. That, oh, it's all these people moving in and getting a job at Rivian from different places of state, different from California. They're getting jobs at Rivian, which might be somewhat true. But people I've talked to, they sign 5-year contracts and they move in from uh, Mexico and they get these work visas. They've signed these 5-year contracts with Rivian, and then they get their housing paid for via the government. So that's all kind of a done deal, and they get their paperwork in place. So that's what I think we're truly making room for is, legal immigrants coming through via work visas, but also immigrants who are illegal and just cross the border, hop the border. Um, and I don't think that it's really McLean County residents at all. I don't think that they're Illinois residents. getting into these multifamily housing units. I've talked to folks. They sign these 5-year contracts, these Mexican people, and coming from all over the country. It's not just Mexicans, it's multiple people from, Iranians. There's, gosh, who was I talking to? Romanians, Ukrainians. There's so many different people. They sign these 5-year contracts, and with these companies like State Farm and Rivian, and they're here for 5 years, and they get these housing stipends from the government, and and the developers love that, right? The developers, they want to get those people into those apartments, and 5 years, they're here for 5 years, and you get a steady paycheck coming in, and they're going to be the ones filling that multifamily housing. Make no mistake, they're not building single family homes. No, no, no. They're building these multifamily, and they're going to cram these illegal immigrants that are in Chicago right now, and they're going to give them $9,000 to go and to take up residency in our communities. Maybe even Lincoln College, right? Maybe they'll transform that into some sort of migrant shelter. I've always predicted that. Um, I've tried to call state legislators and ask them, "Hey, is that true?" Now, there's a lot of ins and out to that. Who bought it? The state. It is in possession, I believe, of the state right now. Um, the Lincoln College property. So we'll have to see. Good morning, Kat. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you guys are watching, go ahead, smash the like button. Um, Darren says these illegals will spread out among all Illinois smaller cities, just like they did with the gangbangers back in the day. Yeah. So what's really interesting is that we are starting to see, especially amidst all of this pro-Palestinian protests and things like that, there are what you would call, I guess, interracial feuds, which is like, yeah, you can't make this stuff up, and why would you want to? Right? They're fighting. So you've got Palestinian immigrants here, and they're fighting with Israeli immigrants. You've got a lot of conflicts from the other side of the world coming over here because they're immigrating. They're coming over the border, and they're bringing their geopolitics over the border, and they're fighting with each other. So there was a story in Chicago where, oh gosh, I forget where they were all from, Venezuela, and there was another. It's like race wars, and they were fighting with each other in the park, and I think it led to the kid getting like broken ribs, smashed up his face. They were fighting because they're fighting over there in the other side of the world, and they've got their issues, but they brought those issues back here over the border, and now there's race wars happening in Chicago. It's crazy. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. Yes, 2,000 troops. That's the big news of today. 2,000 troops headed over to Israel to support Israel. And look, I am a Christian Zionist. I, as much as the next guy, want to support Hamas. But they've been laying the groundwork for this uh, over the past week. They've been saying, we must get involved, we must get involved, we must get involved. Hamas must pay, Hamas must pay. Yes, Hamas must pay, but understand what this is building towards. One American gets killed over there of these 2,000, even more. Okay, so there was 10,000 or so American souls that were shipped out on these aircraft carriers. So we're looking at about 12,500 American souls over there in the Middle East supporting Israel. Um, but I also question if we're even supporting Israel a lot of the time because the Office of Palestinian Affairs, when this first happened, when Israel had this surprise attack happen, the U.S. Office of Palestinian Affairs tweeted out that, hey, Israel shouldn't defend itself. They need to. They called for like a ceasefire, and they said, "Hey, Israel, don't defend yourself." They since deleted that tweet, but they didn't have anybody come out. Joe Biden didn't fire anybody because they tweeted that out. But that was a huge mistake, and I take people at their word from their first initial reaction to something. It is probably the most truth to it, plus the $6 billion to Iran. Then they tried to downplay it, Tony Blinken saying, oh, that $6 billion definitely didn't go to the Hamas, or it wasn't designed to go to the Hamas. We gave it to Iran as humanitarian aid. Yeah, and here's how I explain it. I got $10 in my pocket. You give me $30. I'm going to go take that $10 and spend it on ice cream because I wasn't going to get the ice cream before. But now that I've got $30 from you, I feel comfortable spending that $10. You get what I mean? That's exactly what happened. And we gave them $6 billion Iran, which consequently was given to Hamas to commit these acts of terror. So I question, are we even really supporting Hamas or supporting Israel? Or are we supporting Hamas and Israel at the same time? Are we still giving aid to Iran? If we're still giving aid to Iran, we're fueling both sides of these wars. And this is hyper escalation on every front. We are looking at a two-front world conflict. We haven't even talked about Taiwan yet. Nobody's even talking about Taiwan yet. But Janet Yellen is out there. These warmongers, they're up there and they're saying, yeah, we can afford this. The economy's great. Of course, they're going to say that because they're all lining their pockets. It's the war machine. They're getting their money. And then meanwhile, we've got a foreign-born judge who just gagged President Donald Trump. The president of the United States gagged by a foreign-born judge. If you want to understand the circumstances in which we find ourselves presently, this is reality. You have to wake up. The situation we are in, it is dire. And I know you're like, cat, gumdrops, roses. I want the kittens. It's gonna get worse. It's gonna get worse, and I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't say, hey, it's gonna get worse. And you know, I, as much as the next guy, want to support Hamas. I don't believe in hyper escalation. Uh, Before we get into the rest of the show today, I do want to talk about this fun little story that I had planned because I think it's interesting and it's pretty funny. And I know I told you it's not gumdrops and roses, but I do like to bring you something that'll, at least lighten your heart up a little bit. Okay. I know it's a crazy world, but we've got God. And this is an interesting story. I think you guys are going to like it. It might be a story that's hard to bear, though. So take a listen. These thieves are getting more brazen each and every day. And this unwanted guest stole merchandise from a store in Canada right in front of the owner. Yes. So I like what this guy says. He's the store owner. His name is Jay. He goes, he just decided to come in and start doing some shopping without. He takes a pack of gummy bears. This is what it sounded like. The news story. I'm going to play it here for you. I think you're going to like it. Um, Here we go.
Gas station was visited by a unique shoplifter recently.
The door was open and he just sauntered in and slowly walked around the store and sniffed a few things and found what he wanted and basically left.
I thought it was amazing. I thought it was so cool.
It's one of a growing number of incidents involving black bears in British Columbia, things caught on security cameras. It is something provincial conservation officials attribute to the weather's impact on natural food sources. No one was hurt. The bear wanted something. What did he take? Gummy bears, of course.
I think that's pretty funny stuff. And of course CBC, that's the Canadian Broadcasting Network there, and they of course had to like fit it in there, climate change and the climate change hysteria. It's a bear. The bear wanted food. The door was open and he walked into the store. So the Canadian bear was caught on security video sniffing around inside the convenience store, and he made off with a pack of gummy bears. So this little bugger had the nerve to sit at the end of my driveway, look at me, and eat it. That's what the store owner said. So it was the end of the driveway. He's got the bear, and the bear's got it in his claws. The gummy bears. He was sipping on his early morning coffee, and just imagine spotting a bear strolling through your shop. The bear sniffed around for a bit because he could barely resist barely resists the gummy bears. He wandered in from outside, and he wanted some breakfast, so he just got the gummy bears. Now the store owner, he says this isn't the first time. He wasn't aggressive. He didn't knock anything over. He just looked at me, which was pretty weird. This furry thief obviously has no shame in his game. The incident definitely tickled Karen's heart. It was a sweet spot. Uh, and she just found the situation unbearably cute. She said that it's the bear has a sweet tooth. So Karen is the wife of Jay. She's also, a co-owner in this. So according to reports, there have been like near 6,000 calls to the Conservation Officer Service about black bears, and that's double nearly from 2011. I think it's just people letting their guard down, maybe opening up the door. Just don't open up the door, right? The black bears. And there is something to be said about human food. So once they've had human food, black bears, they aren't afraid. They can't be rehabilitated. Okay. Once they've had human food, that's it for them. They go back for more. So Jay said that the thief felt more emboldened to come back to the convenience store to once again satisfy his hunger craving. So that's exactly what the furry creature did the next day. And he's probably going to continue to do it until Jay shuts the door. So he is going to shut the door, I hope. But sounds like he's gotten used to human food, and it's a tale as old as time. I mean, criminal gets away with a crime, criminal he comes back to commit more crime. It's an endless cycle. Fortunately, the next time, for the next time, I hope the owner takes some precautions against the gummy bear bandit and shuts the door. Just shut the door. All right. Speaking of bears, we might get to this story. Some Chicago Bears fans, they got into a brutal fight. It was a skirmish. Okay, this was a skirmish that does not have global ramifications, but it was a brutal skirmish between two Bears fans outside of the Bears game, and it was over the bathroom. I guess there was like some sort of bathroom dispute. I'm going to be back chatting a little bit about that. Plus, I've got one story that you need to know about. Teacher a New York public school teacher praising Hamas, celebrating the slaughter of women and children. He said it was a successful military campaign. We're going to get back to that here in just a little bit. This is the Morning Buzz. Hey folks, good morning. I so do appreciate you tuning in. Go ahead and smash the like button. We're going to be back in just a couple of minutes. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. Hey, pull up a chair, grab a cup of coffee. Let's sit. Let's have a chat, shall we? Janet Yellen, you won't believe what she said. I've got it here. She was in an interview and she said the quiet part out loud. Folks, I just can't believe it. Let's take a listen.
What this all means. Paul Tudor-Jones, the famed investor, was on CNBC this week, and he said, "This is the most threatening and challenging geopolitical environment that I've ever seen. At the same time, the US is in its weakest fiscal position since World War II, with debt to GDP at 122%. Can America, can the West
So he's asking the question,
afford
can America, can the West afford another war? Because we've already got Ukraine, Russia going on. Now we've got Israel, Hamas going on. We are sending 2,000 troops, boots on the ground, potentially to enter in this war in support of Israel. Like I said, I don't know if we're supporting Israel so much as we're supporting Iran and Israel hyper escalation. Here we go. Let's take a listen.
another war at this time?
I think the answer is absolutely. America can certainly afford to stand with Israel and to support Israel's military needs. And we also can and must support Ukraine in its struggle against Russia. And look, the American economy is doing extremely well.
What this all means.
The American economy is doing extremely well. And joining me in studio, you know him, you love him, David Paul Blumenshine is joining me in studio. Good morning, David. How are you?
Good morning, Kat Peterson. How are you?
I'm good. I've got my coffee here. We're getting ready. We're gonna talk a little bit, I think, about this one story. I've got this New York City public school teacher praising Hamas, and I think that people need to be aware that, hey, your kids might come home with questions. Whenever there's a global event like this, your kid is going to have some questions, especially if you've got crazy radical teachers in there saying that the slaughter of women and children is quoting, and I'm quoting the teacher here from New York, a successful military campaign.
This is, two of those stories. That story from the New York teacher and, of course, Janet Yellen. We are truly the divided states of America. And there's no question about it. We used to be such a united front whenever we faced these global terrorist organizations, but we have started to normalize everything, even savagery to people and humanity. And so we're just in a situation where I don't know. I call it the land of make believe here in the land of Lincoln, Illinois. And on a national level, it is truly fantasy island, because these people, to have someone who has such great influence like Janet Yellen to make statements like that, there are people that believe that.
Yeah, well, and
they're walking around and they will spout the same thing that she's spouting.
Yeah, and I've got a text here on the text line. You can always text me at 309-451-9299. I love this text message. War makes certain people a lot of money. It sure does. Janet Yellen is going to have she's going to be rich beyond her wildest dreams, and she's saying the quiet part out loud there. And this is a two-front conflict, and meanwhile, we've got a foreign-born judge. Did you see this? Gagging President Donald Trump. Taking away his First Amendment, taking away his, the founding father said, hey, you have the right to defend yourself.
Yeah.
And she took it away. She's a foreign-born judge. And these are the circumstances in which we find ourselves presently today. This is reality.
Well, Kat, obviously in my formerly nicotine-stained fingers, I hold the Donald Trump petition for the President of the United States of America. In fact, when we get off air, Kat, I'm going to ask that you sign this petition to get Donald J. Trump on the ballot. Yeah, right here in my hands.
Awesome.
We have the petitions. They're ready to go. And be out circulating them on behalf of President Donald J. Trump. See how I do that, Kat?
This is public information. You are also going to be a Trump delegate.
Yes. So I'm hoping that Ben Matthews will get up and do public comment again about the person that we all need to be concerned about. Ben, guess what? How's life been, Ben?
How's life been, Ben?
Because now yours truly, Ben, is officially on the ballot to be a delegate for Donald J. Trump. I will be circulating that petition also, and I will be present for the Republican convention in Milwaukee next July.
I'm excited. I'm excited for boots on the ground there at the Republican convention. Now, the DNC, they're meeting here in Chicago.
Yes.
And Governor J.B. Pritzker is getting prepared for that. I'm sure he's doing like sit-ups and,
You ever see the movie
plucking his
Warriors?
eyebrows, getting ready.
You ever see the movie Warriors?
Warriors? No.
Yeah, I didn't think it's a little older movie. They have a lot of great music in that, like Eagles are playing in the the background. It's where all the gangs come together in New York City, and they try to build a coalition of the gangs. That's kind of like the DNC convention.
The coalition of the gangs. Yeah. Well, it's gang, and I don't know where they're going to go.
Organized crime coming together.
I don't know where they're going to go because it's stuffed to the max with the illegal immigrants. I mean, we're talking 20,000 shipped to Chicago in just the past few weeks here.
Yeah.
And I've been talking about it all morning. $9,000 going to not all of those illegal immigrants, but to each and every single one. That's $45 million. I mean, the state program Governor J.B. Pritzker signed off on, it's incredible. $9,000? I want $9,000 in rental assistance. That's what it's for. It's for rental assistance.
Well, he is spending a lot of money. Obviously, it's our money, not his money. But he did contribute to his campaign on October 2nd, $12 million, just in case you were wondering. Now I think JB's well over $350 million in campaign contributions to his. So, this just goes to show you that
because
offices are not
it's his
won,
money,
they're bought.
he's allowed to spend as much as possible. Because I know there's a rule there where you can't spend more than $1 million.
He okay, yeah. So inside baseball, any candidate can contribute to their campaigns. It's not a contribution per se. It's a loan. So I know this gets a little bit down into the weeds, but candidates can loan their campaigns money. And then when it's all said and done, if they retire, get out of office, they can take that money back. So they will continue to fundraise, right? And until the cows come home.
Yeah.
They'll even continue to fundraise. I'm not saying that this is going on, but people like Dianne Feinstein, I'm assuming with her sudden death, they were still campaign financing or fundraising right up to the last day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So her estate will pull money out that she loaned the campaign.
Yeah, well, and I don't like that so much because then you're propping up this huge campaign and then you can say, yeah, well, I'm going to win. I've got, $350 million in my war chest. And then people are going to be like, okay, well, I'm going to give you even more money because I'm waging a bet again. Or I'm waging a bet. I'm betting that you're going to get in. And then you can kind of pull that money out and you've campaigned and really fundraised a lot. Using that money you put in yourself.
Well, and his campaign account had gotten down to under $1 million. So I was kind of curious about that because that's running relatively low, especially coming in. Well, and it's intentional, right? Because they get through the quarters. It's the third quarter ended. And so with their campaign financing. So now they go ahead and inject capital into, I say capital, because that's what it is, into their fourth quarter funding because they have primaries and they're going to try to maneuver certain people once again in order to give them the best chance of winning in November of next year.
We got to take a break, but for folks who might not know what a Trump delegate does, I kind of want you to run that down on the other side of the break. So my good friend David Paul Blumenshine, you can hear his show Sunday from 1 to 3 on Cities 92.9. He's going to be on the ballot to become a Trump delegate.
Yes.
What does that even mean?
Yeah.
That's next.
We'll talk about it.
Good morning, friends. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. If you're watching, go ahead, smash the like button, share this out with your normie friends. 12,500. That's the number, 12.5. We are going to be talking about how there is these boots on the ground troops. These 10,000 people were shipped out there earlier in these aircraft carriers. Now we've got 2,000 troops coming, and I mean this is a two front world conflict. We've got Ukraine, Russia, we've got Israel, Hamas, and not to mention, nobody's even talking about it yet, Taiwan. Who knows what's going to happen there? So we're going to be back on the other side. This is the Morning Buzz. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. Hi, thank you so much for tuning in. You guys are the best. The listeners, Cities 92.9 listeners, you guys rock. Right over there, David Paul Blumenshine. Pull up a cup of coffee, strap yourself in, because David is going to tell us a little bit about what a Trump delegate does. He is going to be a Trump delegate. He's on the ballot.
Yes, this is the Morning Buzz, so you need a cup of coffee. Here's what a delegate is. It's someone that is entrusted to represent another. That is the basic definition. So in order for me to go out and circulate petitions on behalf of the President of the United States, yes, I did say it, the President of the United States of America, I get on the ballot. I circulate petitions to be a delegate, and then at the convention, they say, "Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye, how does the state of Illinois vote?" And then the delegates give a rousing, "The delegates of Illinois nominate Donald J. Trump to be the president of the United States," the nominee for president of the United States. So that's what, in a nutshell, a delegate is. I will be out circulating now through the month of November to get as many signatures as we can. Let's go ahead and show the world that we want a true representative of the people in the White House.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, a couple of weeks ago, I did a bit about Ron DeSantis, and I just find it inexcusable. I find it disgusting that he tweeted out of an out of context video, which wasn't even that bad. Even out of context, it wasn't that bad. Of Donald Trump talking about, how Benjamin Netanyahu, he was supposed to do this mission with the United States, and he backed out of it. And it was kind of it sucked for not only the American troops, but also Israel. And he just called attention to that, and Ron DeSantis used that as a way to for political fodder, and it was truly disgusting, in my opinion.
Kat, all of the other presidential candidates for the Republican nomination are out begging people to be delegates. That's the sad part. I mean, I'm not kidding you. With Trump, you had to make an application. It was very competitive to win favor of one of the 17th congressional districts, to be on the ballot. The other, I've heard even Tim Scott is offering to do all of the work for the delegate. Bottom line is, because they understand they're not going to get the nomination.
Yeah. Well, that's going to do it for our show today, folks. Thanks so much. As always, find it on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble, the podcast. I'll catch you tomorrow.